We're losing over 300,000 drivers to medical disqualifications each year. Do you know what that means? You're spending more money on recruitment, business is getting disrupted, and healthcare claims are rising. We're at a point where every driver counts, and how you recruit and retain drivers will significantly impact your bottom line. Are they fit to pass for your next medical exam? Rebuilt to rehire? Have you given them a second chance? With over 25 years of experience in the trucking industry, Fit to Pass understands the driver lifestyle challenges and how it affects your business. As a result, we elicit change when change is hard for life transforming and cost saving results. Visit fittopass.com/podcast to get a free built bar and learn more about how you can improve the quality of your driver's life to help take charge of recruiting and retaining your drivers. From Transport Topics in Washington, D.C., this is RoadSigns. And now here's your host, Michael Fries.
Thank you for listening to this episode of RoadSigns, the podcast series from Transport Topics that explores the trends and technologies that are shaping the future of trucking. For some time now, we've talked about the trucking industry's problem in driver recruitment and retention. However, on the technician side, there's a similar problem that fleet managers are currently facing, both with no ending in sight. But it's not because of lack of effort. So in this episode, we'll take a larger view of that issue and ask the question, how are industry leaders beginning to address the driver and technician shortage? To answer that question on the tech side, we've caught up with incoming chairman of the Technology and Maintenance Council, Randy Obermeyer, during the TMC annual meeting in Orlando last week. But first, we'll welcome Brenda Neville, President and CEO of the Iowa Motor Truck Association. Welcome to the show, Brenda.
Thank you. Happy to be with you, Michael.
I'm happy that you're here. Thank you for taking out some time of your busy schedule to join us. I know that you're dealing with a whole bunch of things, and we're here to talk about from your situation, the driver shortage. But that's a nationwide issue, and however, from your state in Iowa, and other states, it just kind of impacts things a little differently. And then along the situations with the supply chain bottlenecks, and especially in your state of Iowa. Tort reform seems to be a hot burner issue. How's your state's members approaching the dilemma of driver retention with all this going on?
Well, I think, our members here in Iowa are probably doing the same kind of things that most trucking companies are across the nation. And they're really looking for ways to retain those drivers. And, some of the models that have been in place for years, while they may be effective, I think in this current environment, they're looking for creative ways to really make sure that those drivers stick around. And, they're looking at how often they're at home, what kind of equipment. I even know of trucking companies now that have, counselors that are available anytime, 24 hours, to help with drivers if they're having some issues, maybe that go beyond the scope of driving, or they're reaching out to the families and making sure that the family life is good while that driver's on the road. And so I've seen a lot more discussion and implementation of some really creative and thoughtful ways that trucking companies are really focusing on retaining those drivers.
And one of those many ways that fleets are trying to bring in drivers and keeping them, but more specifically bringing in new drivers is with the recent passage of the Drive Safe Act, which was part of I believe the larger infrastructure bill that was passed in the Congress. And that lowers the interstate commercial driving age to 18. How much of an impact will that have on mitigating the shortage of new drivers coming into the industry?
Well, I think, realistically, it's a new pipeline. It's a pipeline of new drivers, I should say. Well, it's a new pipeline too, but, it really helps us reach that 18 to 21-year-old that, quite frankly, and we always experience this when we would go out to schools, high schools or career fairs, there'd be a lot of interest, especially in Iowa, a very agricultural, rural state, a lot of farm kids, both male and female, that were interested in driving a truck. And in a lot of instances, they didn't realize they couldn't go outside the state of Iowa until they were over the age of probably 21 or 22 and above. And that would deter them. Quite frankly, we would see that time and time again. And so I think the opportunity now for us to capitalize on that potential market through the Drive Safe Act is going to be a real positive. And certainly there are some trucking companies, even among our membership, that are not that interested in hiring an 18 to 21-year-old. And there's, of course, insurance, implications. But having said that, there's also a lot of trucking companies that are very interested in reaching that market of 18 to 21-year-olds. And again, especially in the state of Iowa, I think our interest has been very strong, because of the agricultural base. These young men and women have been around equipment, they've been around trucks, and quite frankly, they're some of the best drivers out there. So there's a lot of excitement for that program. There's several carriers in the state of Iowa that have expressed an interest to get in the pilot program. I know our DOT and our governor's office, who we have very strong and positive relationships with, have expressed, their excitement for the program too. So we just believe the implications in both the short and the long term are really positive for the industry.
Yeah, on the surface, that I mean, that does seem like a great a pipeline to utilize in getting younger folks into the trucking industry, especially in Iowa and other states in that region where you're saying it's a rural area, and there's a lot of 18-year-old, a lot of teenagers who are more adapt to that particular environment of becoming a truck driver. As you had stated, some of your members have been reluctant to put young drivers behind the wheel. What are some of those challenges having that particular view, and what are the steps that you're taking to address those issues?
Well, I think, with any new program, you have to be open minded, right? And, to expect that 100% of the trucking companies out there are going to embrace the program would be unrealistic. So, what we have adopted out here is just let's talk about the program, let's inform folks about it, and again, be very open minded. And I certainly am respectful of those company CEOs, that have some reservations, and they have good reasons. And I think some of them are also taking an approach of let's sit back and wait and see how this really works out. And the old adage, let the other trucking companies that are out front, let them train the drivers, and then when they don't work out, we'll go ahead and get those drivers. So, I mean, I think it's just a process of being very open minded, having conversations, and really just seeing how this all pans out. But I think at the end of the day, it's like any new program. Some people are going to approach it a little bit more cautiously, but you can't deny we are opening up the market to some new drivers, potential drivers, that we weren't able to, at least for interstate driving, that we weren't able to attract in the past. And I think that's a positive.
I mean, when you had mentioned that, some companies are going to give it time, just kind of waiting for other companies. I mean, what type of time frame would you talk? I mean, would you be talking about when those companies are kind of taking that frame?
Well, I don't have a definitive answer because, some of them have been a little bit vague too. But, I don't remember even how long the program is, Michael. I don't know if it's a 2-year program or if there is even a time limit. But we do focus groups every fall with our members. And obviously, we talk about the driver shortage, we talk about this topic. And in a lot of cases, some of the feedback that we received in those focus groups from some of our company CEOs, they wanted to watch it for a couple of years, and just really see, how it all panned out. Now, again, maybe after a year there's great success, the pilot program is a great success, and this opens up, then it might be a different story, right? Competitively, they may have no choice but to, maybe change their views. So I think there's just some of them are taking a wait and see approach, and others are very excited about it and want to get started as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'm sure probably with probably the insurance rates involved in that, and some other things, maybe that the tendencies of young drivers and everything. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of data to intake, before
Right,
those.
there is, and I think all of those factors, and ATRI, the American Transportation Research Institute, is doing that study with an assessment tool, and I think we're going to see. I mean, that's going to be such a great tool, and that will be a great place for carriers, to start. Let's look at that study and what are the good habits and the bad habits of potentially safe drivers, and so I think that's the other thing that this brings to the table is we're gonna be able to start getting that data. I mean, we already have it. I mean, a lot of these 18 to 21-year-olds have already been driving intrastate. And so that's what they're, pulling the data from. But I just think it's going to continue to really strengthen our ability as an industry to attract folks, to these really great jobs, quite frankly.
From time to time, an issue commands so much of the industry's attention that it requires a deeper dive, a resource readers can turn to, a Transport Topics special report. We're turning our attention to another big issue, electrification and the key factors that will drive this industry trend. In every case, we're working to provide our readers with information, analysis, and clarity on key issues confronting fleets. One comprehensive resource packed with insights that can give you the edge. Transport Topics invites you to learn more about our special reports. To reserve your copy of the latest special report, visit ttn.ws/electrification.
Well, we've been talking about age, and let's kind of change gears into gender and race when it comes to retention and recruitment. You're a president of a state association in an industry where there's an underwhelming amount of women and minorities that are driving trucks. Quite frankly, so you know about the challenges. I mean, you're quite aware of getting a hold of that demographic to teach them all the benefits of being a truck driver. So, how has your organization approached these marketing efforts and recruiting women and people of color into the industry?
Well, and that's another really great thing that I'm sure people just heard me say. Great thing about the driver shortage is we're having these conversations. There probably is no great thing about the driver shortage, but here's the reality: it has forced us as an industry, as association leaders, legislator leaders, regulators. We have been forced to look at okay, what's out there, and the minorities and women drivers is certainly that conversation, even 5 years ago was not as prevalent as today. And so that's a good thing. And so, from our perspective, we have been seeking out ways that we can get in front of those minority groups. And I know when we go to high schools in particular, there is interest by females. And we as an industry have to do a better job really finding ways that we can get in front of females and minorities, specifically for the female sector, getting female drivers that can actually be out there as a spokesperson for us. We're looking for those because then they can really relate to those other potential female drivers. And I think the same kind of approach would apply with the minorities. But I know we as an association have become much more aggressive in finding ways that we can get in front of those different groups. And that's a good thing. Like I said, we weren't doing that even 5 years ago, but because of the escalation and the driver shortage, I think it has forced all of us to be much more mindful of the potential employees that are out there that can drive trucks and do a very good job driving trucks.
I've seen, through social media, especially more women getting involved, such as posting TikTok videos and whatnot, just kind of making chronicles of their journey as being a truck driver. I mean, has your state association done something or reached out to those people, just kind of a brandscaping effort to get more women into the industry? I mean, have you reached out to people such as that, I mean, who are promoting the industry and making some type of a network collaborative?
Well, we have started to explore that. I mean, social media is certainly a tool that wasn't even at our disposal. Oh, it was, but we probably weren't using it as adequately as we should. Again, even 4 or 5 years ago, even 2 years ago, and so that is something that we are starting to explore and looking for ways that we can utilize that in recruiting and attracting people to this industry. And there are some really effective, TikToks out there. There's some really good things that they've done on social media. So we're looking at that. We're looking at other, ways of communicating and getting our message out. We're looking at there's a plethora of opportunities out there, I think, to get in front of different audiences. It's just, how do you do it effectively and get the resources to enable you to do that? And so we are exploring all of that, which I think everybody has to be doing. I mean, I think everybody is doing that. And again, I think that's a good thing for the industry that you have this surge of communicative and marketing efforts that I think is going to pay dividends. It's not going to happen overnight, but I think it's going to pay dividends in the long run because and you understand this being in the media, you probably people understand supply chain and trucking so much better now than they have an appreciation for it, so much more so than they have in the past. And I think we need to continue to really ride that wave of goodwill, and use it as a recruiting tool.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Most definitely. During the pandemic and the effects of the last year or two or so. With just the general public's better understanding of the logistics industry and more specifically the trucking industry. That's definitely helped out the industry
Yeah.
in that part, just in the
Yes.
sense of awareness. So
Right. And I think they understand the importance of it on their daily life. I mean, I just know in talking to outside groups, when we make a presentation, it's always the question and answers after the presentation, and just the comments, and across the board, there is just a much greater appreciation and respect for the industry, and well deserved, right? We should have always had that respect, and we should have always had that notoriety. But the pandemic, unfortunately, really did help the industry get showcased in the way that it should be showcased all the time. And I do think that's making people think about, that's a really viable career, especially when you start talking about the great salaries that prevail in the industry and the opportunities, the availability of jobs. I mean, there really is a lot of positives. It's just how we present it, and we have to be consistent in that messaging. And I think we're gonna see an influx of folks that come into our industry, maybe not even just for driving jobs, but mechanics and just jobs within the a trucking company operation, safety, accounting, administrative. I think trucking sometimes is overlooked because people do just think it's a truck driving job. And at least we're seeing that when we are making these presentations to the general public, or these different business groups. There really is a change in the attitude and the atmosphere, and the way people are perceiving the industry.
One last question before we get you out of here, and you kind of touched upon it a little bit, just sort of some of the things that fleets and trucking companies are doing. I'm not asking you to, suggest a silver bullet to cure all the ails that are plaguing the trucking industry, but what are some of the things that you're seeing from fleets that are encouraging when it comes to recruiting more drivers, and that you would like to see, being in the position that you're in?
Well, you're exactly right. There isn't a silver bullet, and believe me, if I knew what that answer was, I wouldn't be, sitting at this association. And I think most trucking company owners, if they knew that, they would be on that all the way too. But what I do think is that there, specifically, obviously we've seen that wages are going up, but I think it's also been proven that drivers aren't necessarily looking for more pay. They're looking, for other things outside the pay scale. And I think, you're seeing trucking companies, as I said earlier, being very creative, and being very, very diligent and thoughtful in the way that they are not only recruiting drivers, but trying to retain their drivers. And, I think we did a poll of drivers. It was probably 6 months ago, and at the end of the day, it was still about home time. And I think companies are doing a lot of things to get those drivers home more. And again, I mentioned it earlier, so I'm repeating myself. But having good equipment, benefits. Just some of the benefits packages that we're seeing, in retirement packages. We are seeing some changes in the retirement packages that are being offered by trucking companies. And again, they're really packaging the jobs as a career. And I'm not suggesting that they weren't doing that before, but I think there's even more of an effort right now among trucking companies to really, package it as a career. And it's much more than just your driving salary. There's a lot of other things that go into this job, and those drivers are being rewarded appropriately.
We've been speaking with Brenda Neville, CEO and president of the Iowa Motor Trucking Association. Brenda, it was a pleasure having you on Road Signs. This was a great conversation.
Great. Well, I appreciate all that you all do to keep the message positive, and thanks for all your hard work, you guys.
We try our best. Thank you very much.
We're losing over 300,000 drivers to medical disqualifications each year. Do you know what that means? You're spending more money on recruitment, business is getting disrupted, and healthcare claims are rising. We're at a point where every driver counts, and how you recruit and retain drivers will significantly impact your bottom line. Are they fit to pass for your next medical exam? Rebuilt to rehire? Have you given them a second chance? With over 25 years of experience in the trucking industry, Fit to Pass understands the driver lifestyle challenges and how it affects your business. As a result, we elicit change when change is hard for life-transforming and cost-saving results. Visit fittopass.com/podcast to get a free built bar and learn more about how you can improve the quality of your driver's life to help take charge of recruiting and retaining your drivers.
We are here live at the American Trucking Association's Technology and Maintenance Council 2022 annual meeting in Transportation Technology Exposition, but we like to call it TMC here. For our first guest, we have Randy Obermeyer, the incoming chairman of TMC, and he is also the vice president of safety and maintenance for online transit. Welcome to the show, Randy.
Thank you so much.
Glad to have you on. How does it feel to be the incoming chairman? First question.
It feels awesome. It really does. I appreciate you calling me a special guest, but I'm not really all that special. I'm like the number, 64, 60 probably. I think 64th chairman, somewhere right in that range.
Well, there's only been 64,
That's
so
right.
It's still a unique position. So yeah, and here at RoadSigns, you are a special guest. So, but before we get into just all things the technician and trucking industry, just give us a brief summary of your role at Online Transport.
So basically, the safety and maintenance. So I oversee all of the safety. That's from vehicle accidents and working with insurance companies, working with trying to prevent accidents, working on hours of service regulations, OSHA, EPA. Workers' comp claims, all of that. My primary goal when I started 2 years ago, or my primary role, I should say, 2 years ago when I started was maintenance. I was hired in as the director of maintenance, and I raised so much heck about all the money that we were spending on accidents fixing our equipment that, I think I spoke up a little bit too much, and they said, well, it sounds like you have a lot of good ideas, so how about you run our safety department too?
Safety is first, so, I mean, it's a very distinguished role, so, I mean, you are special, Randy. So.
Thank you for that. But we don't consider safety first. Everything is equal. Everything we do is equal. So safety is a very big part of what we do. But safety is up there. But it's not really what we consider number one, because there's so many other important things within the organization.
Okay. Well, we'll probably get into those later in this interview. But just being in the position you're in and having that particular role at Online Transport, it definitely translates to the work that you've been doing at TMC. And just kind of talk about your role in that, and just kind of the steps you have taken to become the incoming chairman.
Oh yeah, that's a long story. So I started as just an attendee and tried to get some learning out of the TMC meetings. I thought anything I could take back, one thing that I could take back to help my fleet grow and be successful was good. And then one time I gave somebody a business card and said I'd help them with something, and kind of off to the races we went. One person thought I would be a good fit for S2, the Tire and Wheel Study Group many years ago, Peggy Fisher, and she convinced me to take on that role. And then from there, we got elected to the board of directors, and then after a 3-year term, I got reelected to the board of directors, and then was voted in by the board to become the vice chair. And now I've been waiting in Stacy's shadow for 2 years because of COVID. So we kind of joke around about it, call it the COVID leap year.
Stacy Earnhardt.
Yes, kind of skipped that 1 year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, COVID has been a tough time. I had spoken with Stacy back in the fall, just kind of about particular issues that he wanted to tackle as chairman. So you being the new guy, I posed that question to you. What are some of the particular things that you want to bring more awareness to? I mean, not to say that they have been brought to the forefront already.
Well, the biggest thing for me is problem solving. I think about problem solving. It was, it's been very popular here at TMC for many years. When you go all the way back, when you read the history books of TMC, it was always problem solving, and it feels like we kind of got away from that. We cover a lot of technology, a lot of new stuff that's coming on in the industry, but I kind of felt like we, as an industry, have lost our way a little bit in terms of like finding root causes. So there's so many things that go wrong with the truck now where we seem to throw parts at it, or we fix that one particular issue, but there's something that caused that to happen, and we're not really digging into the root causes. I had a session on Saturday where I was teaching a lean class, and this is a lot about problem solving, and I asked the people in the class to draw me a picture of what their problem was. And I think when I think about our problem, the problem that we're challenged with in the industry today, there's a fire here, a great big fire here, and there's an ember that creates a fire pretty far away from that. And we put out that fire and we move on. But there's still the root cause of the major fire that's going on that we got to tackle. We got to find that and put that out as well.
That's a great analogy, Randy. And one of the things too, especially at this conference, is just the arrival of the electric fleet. And in many of the sessions so far, that has been addressed, and just kind of laying the foundation of preventive maintenance on electric vehicles. Do you want to just instill that theme of problem solving that you were just discussing into that particular situation, because that's definitely new terrain?
Yeah, absolutely. I think problem solving in anything you do, if you just think about your personal life, if you overdraw in your checkbook, or there's money missing from an account, you go through to figure out what happened so it doesn't happen again. But we spend a lot of money on misdiagnosed things, or not getting to the root cause on the equipment we have now. And we're talking about, if we change a part that's $500, that's still a big hit to our budget. But when you get to electrified vehicles, there's some componentry there that could be in the thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars to replace. So you definitely want to make sure that you're getting to the root causes there. If you have an issue where you destroy a part and you didn't find the root cause and you send it back out on the road, it's not as simple as, check engine light, take it back into the shop and figure it out. Now it's a major cost to your company that's so difficult to get back.
That's so true. And we can kind of get into the weeds about that, but I do want to address another thing. Definitely industry wide. You have the driver shortage, of course. Where fleets are struggling to number one, attract new drivers and retain the more qualified ones. And on the technician side is just the same with fleet shops needing new techs and wanting to keep the qualified, more experienced techs. What are some of the things that you have seen, and now as your role as chairman, that you think that you can implement or influence in just the promotion of more techs and how to get more techs into the industry?
Yeah, actually, we just finished a conversation earlier with Chris Spear from ATA, and I had asked the question about what did they see in terms of the things that we can do to advertise for mechanics and for that field. And I go back to the days when I was coaching high school volleyball. Girls soccer was the same time as girls volleyball. And when I would go home from practice or whatever, you watch a little TV, movies. You watch a movie and it's a kid playing soccer, and then you go to a commercial break and there's a van getting sold to a lady that she's hauling her kids to the soccer game. And I can't compete with that. Because the volleyball isn't out there advertised like soccer is. So I see the same thing happening in this field. You have the TVs that you see a lot of doctors and lawyers and nurses and firefighters and police and all these other things, but you never see a mechanic. And I'm not saying they have to create movies about mechanics. It'd probably be a pretty boring movie, but we need to advertise it. We need to find a way, because this is a very technology-driven industry now, and these kids that were born with iPads and iPhones in their hands, they can handle this, and it's not back-breaking, dirty, greasy work anymore. Some of it is. Some people enjoy doing that, and some people will continue to do that, but the industry has changed so much now that it's become a technology field, and people coming out of high school can really start right away if they know computers. There's some people that do nothing but troubleshooting electrical issues with a laptop. It's the stuff that they were basically born to do, in my opinion. So we got to get away from the whole thing of mom and dad pushing the kids to go to a 4-year schooling and end up with so much debt that they can't work their way back out of it. This is a very good career, and we need either billboards, or we need to get on the TikToks, we need to get on Snapchats, we need to get on the sides of trailers and show that this is a very good field for people, and they can make a lot of money being a mechanic these days.
Okay. Well, just one more question before I get you out of here and everything, and just kind of a follow up to the previous question. Just kind of, what are some of the things that you have seen that's encouraging to you when it comes to the recruitment of young techs?
I think that really the encouraging piece to me is they are technology driven. So a lot of the older school mechanics were, basically said that, years ago trucks were all nuts and bolts. and you had to have somebody that was willing to get greasy and dirty to be a mechanic and willing to do the backbreaking work. A lot of the mechanics came from farm communities and stuff like that. Now, with it being so technology driven, I think we have a bigger pool of people to choose from. Plus, I think I see a little bit of a change in the thought process. I think about my son. He didn't want to become a mechanic necessarily, but he didn't want to go to 4-year trade school. He wanted to work with his hands. So I see a little bit more of a shift in that, which I'm glad to see. And with this being technology driven, I think that those kids, those young adults coming out of high school could really help us.
We've been speaking with Randy Obermeyer, the incoming chairman of the Technology and Maintenance Council, and also the VP of Safety and Maintenance for Online Transport. Randy, it was a great pleasure having you, and I hope you have fun at this show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being on here and you asking me.
Did you know you can ask Alexa to open Transport Topics? In just 1 minute, you will hear the biggest trucking headlines of that day. Be prepared and start your morning off right with Transport Topics.
Before we close, let's take a moment to revisit our original question. How are industry leaders beginning to address the driver and technician shortage? As we've heard from both of our guests, we talk about issues such as tort reform, which is a hot-button issue in the state of Iowa with Brenda Neville, or navigating the new world of electric trucks and preventive maintenance with Randy Obermeyer. However, the cloud of attracting new talent will overshadow most conversations in the industry for the near future. The common theme from both Neville and Obermeyer is not just having the opportunity to communicate the benefits of becoming a driver or tech, but to emote the joy and passion that comes from having these positions. Both guests have and will continue to share their journeys, as well as others, to bring more people into the fold. Pay raises and benefits are effective motivators in the job, but personal fulfillment and pride make it a career. If you enjoyed this episode of Road Signs, please let others know. Rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If my questions have sparked questions of your own, share them with the Road Signs team or reach me on Twitter at Michael V. Freeze. You can email us at share@ttnews.com. We'll read them and respond daily. And of course, we'll be back in 2 weeks with a new episode of Road Signs. Until then, I'm Michael Freeze. Thank you for listening.